about was really to get you to start thinking about capacity and what capacity means in a business. Now this was obviously, this is typically a service operation, but of course they are making stuff. So when I'm talking about thinking about companies that you could choose for your assignment, they are likely to be an element of both, but you would probably sort of say, well, I think the restaurant is probably more, it's more about the service part, and then your manufacturing one would probably be more about them actually making something. So you probably want some sort of like factory or something, or you know, more of a like, you know, maybe like a sandwich maker or something that's delivering out, or you know, it's a retail. So you can concentrate on the back office, which is how do they make sure that they've got the sandwiches ready for people to literally come and take off the shelf, sort of thing. But have a think about who you want to choose, and then have a chat with me. Then obviously, yeah, with regard to that, and then I'll make sure you cover what you need to cover. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at think about some of the theory. There are some capacity management strategies that you can sort of think about. So these will give you something else to look at with regard to that. And as I think I've already pretty much said, what you decide to do as an organisation with regard to capacity will very much depend on what you're trying to achieve with regard to that. So a Michelin star restaurant, so a really high spec, you know, food type restaurant, will have a lot of staff involved. There will be lots of people, so there will be, you know, like people meet and greet at the door. There'll be several. There'll be a wine waiter. There'll be, you know, people bringing the food, people taking your order, will probably be much more knowledgeable. So all of that will create higher unit costs. You'll have less covers, less people will be coming through. So your cost will be high in terms of all these staff you need and the type of service you're providing, but your selling price will be high as well. So that's the sort of thing. So when you look at what's my operations cost, you do that linked into the other sort of functions. A lot of capacity is about, if I can't service my customers and they are going elsewhere, then I am losing revenue. And that was why I sort of said about managing demand, which we're going to have a look at. You know, so can I try and encourage them to come at a different time? The extent to which you can hold stock, now this very much sits in the manufacturing side. Do I make things so you know, do I make ice creams all the way through the winter and freeze them, you know, keep them in cold storage so that in the summer I've got excess capacity? Yeah? Do I, you know, so at the moment, I mean, all the shops are full of Easter eggs, aren't they? So essentially those Easter eggs have been made for a while ago, they have been stored. Again, it will depend on the product. Can I think about staff and how I use staff? We'll have to talk about that in a minute. Can I think about inventory? Again, if I was talking about a sandwich shop, you know, if you're making to order, that's going to be slow. If you've already made all the sandwiches in the back office, then that is going to be much quicker. But then your choice is, you know, whatever sandwiches are left. What level of service do I want to provide? If you have got, so those of you just looking at restaurants, if you're full, so I don't know who had, if you've got 300 people in your restaurant, how dependable is that service going to be? I think probably we've all had that experience where we've gone in somewhere and we're still sat waiting for food 30, 40 minutes later. So our service is completely gone. So do you want to get right up to capacity is often the thing. It's like a sunny day in a pub, isn't it, when everybody's in the garden and the whole thing sort of ceases to it. And flexibility, can I change the capacity quickly for the demand that I find on that day? So those are the sort of things that we think about, which is what this slide was all about. So again, this is Terry Hill, another one of the big theorists on operations management. The uncertainty of product service demand are in stark contrast to the relatively fixed nature of capacity. You know that you can do so many covers in your restaurant, but what you don't know is when people are going to come in. It is not possible to exactly match the two without using some combination of inventory, order backlogs, queues, or underused capacity, like here, right, no, one customer. Not great. That's costing the money business. Yeah? So you did come up with some of these with regard to capacity measures, and that's what I wanted you to do, you know, in terms of that. So yeah, we can allocate, which is what you did, a resource per time allocation, so not going to make seats in a hotel and things like that. Number of customers per shift. So your hairdressers, again, how many can you, so an appointment book normally, allocating, so if it's a cut, blow dry, allocate 45 minutes, if it's a colour, allocate an hour and a half, but also if it's a colour, you probably can slot in a cut around it maybe, so that's all how you work it out. Much easier, this sort of thing, this sort of product, this is your manufacturing production line, how many, you know, how many, I don't even know what those are actually, how many of whatever they are can I make in an hour or a day, some sort of machine type thing. Oh no, I think the batteries, looks of it, before they've got the outer cover on them. With regard to that, so you're always looking, so for your business, the ones you choose, you're looking for some sort of capacity measure. And then you can work out utilisation as well. So we have, so you all worked out your capacity, didn't you, in your restaurants, but your utilisation might only be 50%, might only ever have. And if any of you, do any of you, probably don't, watch the Hotel Inspector? Have you ever watched any of that? First thing she does when she goes into like failing hotels is go, what's your capacity utilisation? Which is essentially means that, you know, you're running a bed and breakfast and you've got 10 beds in there. You know, how often are those beds full? And if your capacity, very often the utilisation is something like 25%. So that's 75% of the time those beds are empty. Now you're paying money for them to be there with regard to that. So that's what it is. So you're looking, and again, have a look at the organisations you choose and come and ask me, do you think this is a capacity measure? I'm very much recommending that you pick an organisation that you know somebody who works in. These are questions to ask. You've either worked in them or you know somebody who's working there, because you can ask this then. You can say, well, what's your capacity and what sort of utilisation of that capacity is being used? And how do you measure your capacity and things like that? Okay, I think we did a little bit of this, so that's the question I asked you with the restaurant. Particularly on the customer side, so this group here, you sort of did more of this than probably the others. So so things like happy hour, things like a booking system, which you guys talked about, that is how you can manage demand. But with this, we can also look at it from the organisation's perspective. So we can say, well, how might we bring in other resources to help us with this variable demand? So anybody works in, so what about anybody work in a supermarket? Anybody work anywhere? So where do you work? In a restaurant, okay, alright. So what else can you do? So you can manage the customer side. What else can you do with regard to what does the organisation typically do to try and manage capacity? So it's going to be it's a summer day and the forecast is really good. You've got a big beer garden. What can you do? What could you do to try and manage that demand with your capacity?
Getting more staff.
More staff, yeah, absolutely. More bar staff, more staff in the kitchen. You did say about limiting your menu. Yeah, just saying we're only doing sandwiches, crepes. We're only doing that quick type, wrap type roast. We're only doing this, so we're not doing. Yeah. Like I say, my ice cream. Making ice creams through the winter, storing them. Another example and things like that. Yeah. Now, if you do some, again, if you have a look at the core text, they'll give you lots more examples. But we normally look at it like this. So, what can we do on the customer side? Yeah. So we can advertise for certain times of the day. Yeah. And we can try and pull people in then. Price is a key one. Yeah, more expensive certain times of the day. If it's peak, I mean that's what you do. Those of you travelling on trains and things, if you have to travel before 9:30 when it's really busy and they've reached their capacity, then essentially you'll pay more money for it. Can we change the service design or the product design to try and help? So that might be what you actually get with regard at certain times, so you don't get the full service at certain times of the day when it's really busy. Obviously reservations, appointments are key, particularly on service industries. Fixed timetables, that's things like transport and things like that. And education, so getting people to understand when it's best to come and things like that. On the capacity side, can we get people to work longer, pay them overtime when we're really busy? Can we bring in temporary labour? I mean, obviously 0-hour contracts is something that essentially lots of organisations have tried. So can we pull people in at the last minute if it's going to be a lovely sunny day? With regard to that, do we have people on our books that are prepared to just turn up? Annualised hours, so we sometimes see that with things like nannies and things. So if you've got school-aged children, for example, and you want somebody to take the children, come in the morning, take the children to school, pick them up from school, and look after them. So on a school day, they might only be working 4 hours, 2 hours in the morning, 1 hour in the morning, 3 hours in the evening, the afternoon, evening. So, but in the holidays, you want them there all the time. So you want them there from, like 8 till 6 in the holidays. So what you can do is work out all of those hours, so you calculate all those hours up together, and then you divide it through by 12 and you pay them that rate, so that monthly rate. That gives you a little bit more flexibility, because if a child is then ill or something, you can sort of say, oh well, yeah, could you work more this week? So that is one of the ways that organisations try to manage it, by paying the same amount and then giving them the flexibility to maybe call someone in. So yeah, on a day when the child is ill. Flexible staff, so yeah, you think you're doing a 6-hour shift, you get in there and you say, actually, can you do a 4-hour shift, can you do a 10-hour shift or whatever, and again, you'll see that in catering, things like that. Shifts and how they overlap is all quite key. If you can share resources, sometimes you can subcontract out, so can you pull somebody else in when you've got a busy time or something? Have you got capacity in the manufacturing with another facility? So those are some of the ideas. That should give you some help as well with asking the question, shouldn't it, of your organisations. So how do you manage the demand? What sort of things might you do? And how do you manage the capacity? Vice versa, thinking about that. Okay. So, like there always is, there are some strategies here. So 3 strategies we're going to have a look at. Again, these will help you because you can sort of go, oh, what sort of strategy do I think my chosen organisations are using? And why do I think they're doing that? Okay, all right, so there are 3. So I'm going to hand this over to you, as I normally do, to have a think about this. So, well, yes, so we'll go with 3, but you've lost your 2, but presumably they might come back, but I'll leave. So, Anna, if you want to do the first one, level capacity strategy, you 3 want to have a look at chase demand, and you 3 want to have a look at manage demand. So these are capacity managing strategies. So hopefully you will find them, but they should be telling you how you can manage demand
capacity
and capacity.
Management strategy.
Yeah, see what you can find. So, and some examples, if you can find what these approaches are and how capacity can be managed using this approach. Yeah.
Capacity management strategy. We are doing number 2, isn't it? Capacity management strategy.
Show it to the web.
No,
Is your into the web?
no, mine's working.
Just do the first.